Welcome back, everybody. It is Wins Above Fantasy, episode 182, Thursday, June 18th. Happy Juneteenth. We are talking buy low hitters this week. And Steve, good to be back. This time of year is always interesting. It feels like it's a little early in the season to be doing mid-year splits or looking at a full-on trade show. We got some of our key episodes around All-Star break and after All-Star break, but this is a good time to be looking at some buy low hitters, which is the focus this week, because again, it's a couple months in and you've got enough of a sample where managers are kind of locked in and, they're looking at the back of the baseball card. Maybe they're a little underwhelmed, but there's plenty of data under the hood to look at from a season long standpoint, but also month over month. So exciting list of names. We got about 8 guys we're going to be talking about for buy lows. It's going to be a fun topic. Great to be back as always. Steve, how's it going?
Yeah, it's good. I was telling you off air, I got to see some minor league baseball this weekend. Went to a Jersey Shore Blue Claws game. Those are always fun. I know you're in the thick of it in Peoria with the Chiefs and everything right there. So minor league baseball is just awesome. It's the product itself is almost secondary, so it's great for like kids and just things to do. I actually ran into, not knowingly, one of my home league mates there, which was amazing. We were just standing around the stadium and literally bump into each other, which was hilarious. And I was actually playing shout out DJ that week, so it was hilarious.
Watching minor league
trash
baseball.
talking, watching a little minor league baseball.
Sounds like a great summer day.
Yeah, it was great. Fireworks night, all that. The minor league games are now that I'm for the summer. 15 minutes from there, definitely want to get there again. So
food for the soul. Love it.
Yeah. But I mean, this is a constant topic. Maybe we do this more than once a year, honestly, as far as buy lows, and just I think it's sort of the bread and butter of our show, looking at some underlying metrics and then mixing that with actionable advice is probably the mission statement of wins above fantasy, right? We're at a point where we have large samples. People need to make moves in standings and trading leagues. People are tired of certain players. Some players are dropped. I think we have a wide range here of guys that could be acquirable via trade or
even added.
A lot of these guys have been dropped too. Maybe half are waiver wire, and then the other half are some really big names, some names that might be more gettable than not. But excited to get into it.
Yeah, well, I think that's that kind of gets us into the methodology a little bit here, Steve. I mean, I think that nowadays we're kind of spoiled with, not only the advancements of different stats and different sites and visualization tools, but also, I said different sites, but yeah, I mean, I personally was looking at Savant, looking at Pitcher List, Fangraphs. Like, I think a lot of great data is out there for this, but it's also one that we would advise you kind of put the puzzle pieces together, right? So I think that's what you wanted to hit on, where especially on Baseball Savant, kind of the easiest place to start is kind of looking at those expected stats, where XBA or X slug, and you can sort off the differences. And that at least is a starter for me always when I'm doing something like this. But then I'll want to find guys who seem like they are underperforming and might have an interesting story, whether I know that they're typically a slow starter or they've had some really interesting splits, or maybe they've come alive in the month of June and I want to take a look under the hood and see, was there an approach change? So that's kind of my process. But yeah, I think the big takeaway is there's a lot of data to go see this and remind yourself that like most managers are not looking at this. And so there's an advantage to be had there, but also if you can piece the puzzle pieces together, it's not a sure thing, but a lot of these guys, it's more than a coin flips chance, much more that they're going to turn it around. And we've seen that, for 4 or 5 years doing the show. But that's kind of my thoughts, high level on the topic itself and the methodology. What do you think, or what would you add to that?
I would first add that Pitcherless also has X stats. I know they don't. It's not necessarily the X stats leaderboard that
The
Savant
leaderboard.
has.
Yeah.
That you could sort differences and everything like that. But Pitcherless also incorporates spray angle in their X stats, so maybe a little bit better there in the fact that there's a direction as to where into how that is formulated. Whereas Baseball Savant is just okay, balls hit this hard at this launch angle. This is the historical batting average on it, right? Whereas Pitcherless takes an okay, balls hit this direction at this exit velocity and launch angle. This is the XBA on it, or the historical batting average on it to get to it. I'm sure I missed something. I'm sure Kyle Bland may yell at me, but tweet at him if you want a better explanation. But I'm doing my best here. That being said, I don't know. I would maybe push back. I think a lot of people do look at this stuff now. I think it's more common than not. Maybe not in every single home league or in your casual leagues, but in like every NFBC league, like there's not much advantage to be had here, or at least highly competitive leagues. But I would say most people are at least familiar with it now if you're a competitive fantasy player. But I think there's also things to consider, like run environment, like the fact that the league X slug is 26 points higher than the actual slug, right? There's 26 points of slugging that aren't, ideally the X slug overall and league wide would be the same as slug, right?
Right.
And Baseball Savant does do that. They, Saris mentioned this on Rates and Barrels a few weeks ago, that at some point in the year, Baseball Savant recalibrates their data and says, okay, this year, this is what these exit velocities and launch angles are doing league wide, and that number is 0. But right now, you're not at a full, you're not looking at the full information if you're just saying, oh, hey, this guy's slugging 150 points less than his X slug. He's an automatic buy low. There's other considerations. A lot of that this year has to do with drag in the baseball. There was another great article by Eno and Evan Drelich over at The Athletic that the ball has more drag than any point since they've been tracking it. I think it goes back to 2018 or 2019. Even further than that, I think even 2015 they have data on it from when they have Savant numbers. So there is more drag on the ball. It's going, I think the article said, about 3 feet less on average. So there's different things to consider. Maybe that will change as the weather heats up, and there'll be some differences there. But there's things to consider that which is why I think you want to get into stats underneath the X stats, right? Like, okay, yes, this guy's underperforming, but is his process good? Is he barreling the ball? Is he pulling the ball in the air? What's going into, is that sort of under expected stats deserved in a way, right? That's, I think, the extra homework that you can do to get a leg up when just looking at something like X stats.
Yeah, no, and it's fair, Steve. I mean, people definitely are used to going out and seeing, basically what the sliders look like on Pitcherless or Savant. Like, is it a bright red page? But I think getting down to kind of the story level is, like you said, where there's an advantage to be had. And that's probably a segue to subject number 1, which was Luis Garcia. This is a guy that I drafted in my home league, and I dropped him and moved on, and he's actually on the wire. So he's 61% rostered in Yahoo leagues, 259 average at the moment, but the Savant XBA is 312 on top of that 259 average. That is the 9th largest gap between batting average and XBA. As you mentioned, Steve, the pitcherless one, when you add in kind of the directional stuff, it's still a 298 expected average. So quite a bit higher than the 259. And on the slug as well, a 408 slug and a 519 X slug for Luis Garcia. I feel like Washington, we always talk about it. Like when it heats up, that's a good place to hit. His barrel rate. So then you got to kind of take a look at the monthly if we're following our process here, and his barrel rate per batted ball event. So not per plate appearance, but when he's hitting the ball. In April, it was a 6% barrel rate per batted ball event, and then in May, it was 13%. So it doubled. And in June, it's been 15%. So the barrels are getting back to kind of the expectations we had for Luis Garcia going into the year when he was like a top 115 pick. And then the approach is interesting too, where he's swinging more, like his swing percentage is up month over month. And his line drive rate has gone up from 17% in April to 29% in May and June. Which would be like top 25 in the league on line drives. So I think that's where like that XBA number is coming from, that, line drives are great if you want to be up by like the 290, 300 range. And then pitcher list. I know the IPA percentage, the ideal plate approach, is one of the better. I mean, we had Christian Mack on here and talked about it, but it's one of the strongest hitting stats that we have, and Luis Garcia has the third highest IPA percentage on pitcher list. So all these things were kind of eye-opening to me. I know he also homered last night, so Luis Garcia is now on my radar, because this time of year it's like you kind of feel like you lose excitement for like the typical names on the wire, and you're just looking for like the next call up. But I think Luis Garcia is probably going to be kind of a sneaky plus contributor, if not plus the rest of the way, because he offers some of that power speed. And if that average is up there, he's hitting third in that lineup. Like, I think this is kind of a sleepy name. So I like Luis Garcia. I think when I'm in my next need of a bat at least in that league, I know he's obviously scooped up in like industry leagues, but I'm interested in Garcia. So curious your thoughts there. For you want to add anything?
I think it's a good call. Luis Garcia, the fact that he has 6 homers and 7 steals, like that might not be eye popping now, but it's probably gonna trend close to, a 15-20 season, right?
Yeah, he attempted 5 last month too.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So, and a lot of times when the bat gets going, that's when the steals come, right? He was super, super icy cold for the start of the season. There's not going to be many steals that come with that. I do like that he's walking a bit more. That it's not much, but even a percentage point up with the fact that he doesn't strike out will lead to more of those opportunities. If you look at the bat speed, it's in line with the improvement month over month. He's slowly increased his bat speed from March to June. It's gone up every single month. And I think we saw sort of, the type of player that Luis Garcia could be at his peak last year, which is close to a 2020 season with a good batting average, right? He just does not strike out at all, sort of has that Luis Arias, high squared up percentage, does chase a lot, and maybe doesn't have the sweet spot that the Stephen Kwan type does, and Luis Garcia, that Stephen Kwan and Luis Arias have, that lead to the super low or super high batting averages, but he does hit the ball harder, right? 71 percentile for hard hit, a 10% barrel rate. Like, that's a nice pairing. And the fact that he's, in his age 25 season, and I think there'll be steady improvements here. He had a 762 OPS. It's 711 right now. I wouldn't be surprised if he finished around that 762, if not a little bit better. And again, considering the run environment and the fact that he chips and steals, or not more than chips and steals, right? Like he's a 20 stolen base guy, right? I think we could say that now, considering the pace he's at this year and the 22 that he stole last year. So I like it. I think he's sort of a really good power speed combo that, like you said, maybe sitting out there on your wire, just with how bad he's off. How bad of a start he got off to. What is his playing time like versus lefties? Because I know that is.
Yeah, he does have the odd scratch. Let me check. I think it's not. I mean, he's gotten a couple scratches, but it's been like 3 in the last 2 weeks. Is he sitting every game against lefties? Where's his splits on that? Let's take a look. But
Yeah, he
yeah,
bats lower in the lineup. I mean, he did sit 3 times versus lefties, but he also started 3 times versus lefties. So half the time versus lefties he's sitting.
okay.
You could sort of live with that, right? Like it's probably
Mhm,
versus the really, really tough lefties that he's sitting.
mhm.
But for the most part, like he's in
Just
there.
about, yeah. He does struggle
He's
against lefties for sure.
yeah, he does struggle against lefties, but I mean he's appeared in 64 games this year and they're what close to the that's probably what 10 or so sits, right? How many
Yeah.
games did they play total in Nats?
Uh,
This is
let's
great
see. Yeah,
radio.
73.
Yeah, so he sat like 10 games, 9 games. That's not
Okay,
the
so we'll play
worst.
6 out of 7 games.
Yeah,
That's not bad.
yeah.
Yeah, just for the PLV pitcher list stat, his hit luck is basically 7th percentile. So on as it relates to like expected, like what should he be doing? His hit luck is at a 93 percentile, which basically means he's getting extremely unlucky.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think signs point to better days ahead if you need some help at second base or middle infield. And it's a guy who is kind of a heralded prospect a little bit. So yeah, I think Garcia is a good one. Steve, you kind of noted the next one, so I'll let you kick off, buy low number 2 here.
Yeah, this also came from a question in the Discord. Um, Ben Rosner does the live chat basically every day, and one of the first questions was from Dr. Tobias Funk. I never watched Arrested Development, so I may be mispronouncing this. So you could butcher me in the comments or roast me in the comments. But his question was, when will Ben Rice start to get reward for all his hard contact? It's crazy how unlucky he's been, and he put a rolling graph of his hard hit rate, his strikeout percentage, his WOBA, his savant sliders, which they're the bright red in all the bright red areas that make you feel nice inside, and then also his process plus, which is a pictureless that rolling graph that Kyle Blank rated that scales his decisions, contact, and power, and it all just looks good. And then you look at the surface stats for Ben Rice, and you see a 228 batting average with a 456 slug, which is like, okay, yeah, like this is a nice story, right? Like he was sort of popped up in spring training, and he's doing pretty well with his 12 homers and 117 WRC plus, a 770 OPS, but he deserves a lot more. He's only striking out 22% of the time. He has a 15.5% barrel rate. That's good for 97th percentile. He's pulling the ball in the air 25% of the time. That's up there with league leaders. And he started at catcher today. So Giancarlo Stanton came back, and everyone was worried about Ben Rice's playing time. Is he going to get sent down? He's been struggling. He has been pretty bad
In June. Yeah.
in June and May, right? Like in April. That's when a lot of those home runs came, and a lot of that damage was done. But I really think that there's yes, the results haven't been there, but the process is still really good, and I think he's still worth holding on to. And if he's dropped, it could be someone that you may be able to get catcher eligibility with soon. That could slide in there. Yeah, he had 7 of his 12 homers in 8 in April, 8 if you count March, but there really hasn't been much to the process other than just Ben Rice getting unlucky. I think, again, this may be a theme of the show, but as it gets warmer in Yankee Stadium and he's a lefty and can take advantage of that short porch, like I think Ben Rice is going to approach 30 homers this season.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good one because it's like the luster's worn off a little bit where the numbers month over month don't look good, but also they don't look so different to where it just seems like it's like a timing issue or something. Like he is a little bit more aggressive month over month. So like his overall swing percent in April was 41%, moved all the way up to 50.6 in May, and then up to 51.6 in June. So he is swinging a lot more. But some of the other, like his zone swing is still at the same percent. His barrels and stuff have gone way down in June, especially. But I feel like when you look at like the bat speed has gone down, but when you look at some of the other stats, it looks like he's still got like kind of the same numbers as it relates to like pull and line drive and fly ball.
Yeah,
Like
there's not much change,
he's still the same guy. It's
yeah,
just
he still
his
seems like the
timing's
same
off.
guy. Yeah, like the hard hit is consistent month over month. Um,
The bat speed thing is a little strange, but it's like, I mean, I guess, and a mile per hour is, kind of a big deal in bat speed because the range isn't that big, but
yeah,
70,
that is
74 and
a
a
big
half
deal.
from April down to 73. So he's lost a tick, but I don't know. I think I'm with you, Steve, that I'm betting that this is just, a cold stretch basically for a guy who, when he gets hot, you're going to want to make sure he's rostered, right?
Yeah, yeah, I think so, and it's super telling that they kept him in the lineup with Stanton back, and then not only kept him in the lineup, but it started him at catcher, I think, for the first time, and I believe it was the first time in the pros. I could be wrong there. Maybe he did get a few starts there last year, but
Early on. Yeah.
definitely, was in the minors last year. I think when he had a catcher eligibility last year. Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, I think that Rice has just been super, super unlucky, and there'll be another 7-homer month like he had in April soon.
Yeah. I was going over to see how many games he had played at catcher because that's when I overpaid last year, Steve.
Yeah,
And part of
because
why I was excited was he was at
yeah,
catcher.
because these process stats are so strong for him, right?
Yes, and yeah, rest the season they got him. Most systems have him at like 11 homers rest of the way, so I would put him at 23 homers. But I think I would take the over on that with
Yeah,
that stadium and like the just his pop. I mean, we saw in April, like if he's capable of a 7-homer month, like I've got to imagine across, you know, July, August, September, I think he gets more than 10, 11 homers the rest of the way. Um, so yeah, I think Rice is a good one. Another one that's like 26. We're seeing the best days ahead for Rice. And yeah, I think the Yankees see something in him, like you said. So yeah, Luis Garcia, Ben Rice getting us started. Next section, we're getting into guys who were drafted even earlier in the draft. So these might be some trade targets, but some of them might be available as well. But we're going to take our first ad break, and we'll be right back after this. All right, so Steve, 'tis the season to be dreaming on those hotter days at Coors Field, and Brenton Doyle is one that has made the list here. I know you're always one to throw a Rocky out pre-summer, but yeah, with Doyle, it hasn't quite been everything we were hoping for. But talk to me why we should be excited about what could be ahead for Doyle.
yeah. If there was like one, I know we talk about the desert island pitching statistic and K minus BB for me, but like if there was one like actionable advice, it would be like buy a Rocky in the beginning of June. After April and May are freezing there and they don't have many home games, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is that advice here. It may not be an X stats play, right? It's still just a 242 XBA, a 413 slug, versus the 194 and 308 that he's at. And I think that the XBA and X slug are in line with what I would expect from Doyle. I didn't really have many shares of him after his really good year last year, and definitely seems like there's an inflated price on these type of Rockies that have pop-up years, and Nolan Jones, Brenton Doyle,
Mm-hmm.
and then there is some standard regression that needs to be applied, but that doesn't mean that he's still not going to be a valuable fantasy asset. You may not like him at the draft cost that he was in the 5th, 6th round, wherever he was, but now he's probably free in a lot of leagues.
Yeah.
He still has 5.
59%. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. He still has 5 homers, 12 stolen bases, and that's backed up by a 12% barrel rate and 95th percentile sprint speed. Like the homers and steals are there. The homers are going to come more often in the summer. He had 11 homers in July last year alone. It's going to get warm in Colorado. They've only played 34 home games this year. There's 47 remaining. So, yeah, fire up your Brenton Doyles. I think he is in for a good summer. And if he was dropped, definitely is a good option in 5 outfielder leagues, 3 outfielder leagues, even. And I think he's 12 team viable. Is my overall take on it for sure.
Yeah, I was going to cite the big breakout last summer, but you mentioned it. That was the 11 homer, 1194 OPS, and in the month prior to that, hit 223 with a 543 OPS. So the roller coaster of the Rockies in the summer is a lot of peaks, a lot of valleys, and yeah, I think Doyle again is another one. Just like 27 years old, like you said, he's got kind of the raw tools, and if they've got all those games at Coors lined up, it's like we've done dumber things for less in fantasy. Like this is a really good for a guy that's 59% rostered. You know, you could go on a tear in your league if he puts up even half of that type of production that he did last year in 1 month. So yeah, I like Doyle here. I'm trying to see if there's anything on like the underlying in terms of I mean it has been pretty rough on a lot of his like you know, just looking at his pitcher list page here, like where we talked about IPA for Luis Garcia being like 99th percentile. It's rough for
it's a better barrel rate. It's a better hard hit rate.
Okay. That's what we're holding on to. 35th percentile.
A better contact rate, a better swing strike rate. He's swinging less in the zone. So maybe that overall swing strike rate and less chase isn't the proper trade-off. You would almost want him to swing more in the zone. But that seems like it's an easy adjustment. Like, okay, be a little bit more aggressive. And maybe once he does get some of that confidence back, we'll start seeing that. Like you could even, sacrifice maybe a little bit of the strikeout rate. It's a 243 BABIP. Like a guy that hits the ball hard 44% of the time and runs as well as he does should not run a 243 BABIP. Yeah, it may not be the 316. But in Colorado, that's the one place to boost BABIP. And I know that's like the old head fantasy analysis of just looking at BABIP, right? And we've gotten far beyond that, including why we're doing this show. But yeah, I would not be surprised if much better days ahead are ahead for Brenton Doyle.
Yeah, his contact and power on PLV is around average. It's just more like the hitter performance where, yeah, I mean, I think there's some decision making errors kind of, but when he does hit the ball, so I think
that's like part of his profile, right? I mean, you're not buying Brenton Doyle to be a 300 hitter. Like he's sort of a low average power speed guy in Colorado, which is why he was attractive on draft day.
Yeah. So that's Doyle again, 59% rostered in Yahoo leagues. Going to our next name on the list here. Talk about a guy that people were excited about. Dylan Cruz was kind of the wide awake sleeper, and we've been spelling his name with K's in our league chat. I think that's taking off, but yeah, just about as rough as it can get for Dylan Cruz this season with the 196 average. But the magical stat for kind of the desert island stat of barrel rate, a 14.5% barrel rate. So it's enough for a 23-year-old who we're so excited about, who has like insane power, insane speed, to dream on it a little bit. But as you're looking a little under the hood, Steve, is there anything beyond kind of the power, speed, raw talent here to get us excited about a little bounce back for a guy that's, got a 620 OPS on the season?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention him quickly. I know he's still out in the IL. And the last update that at least I saw was that he yet to resume baseball activities on June 3rd. And it was oblique injury that he went down with. So those things can take a while, but we're getting to the point where it's like, okay, he's probably going to start at least trying to swing a bat again. And as long as he feels okay, then we'll build up.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to mention him because, yes, the 196 average is rough. A 620 OPS is barely playable, but he still did have 7 homers and 11 steals in 150 and 173 plate appearances. That's a 20-30 pace, which would play even with an average close to Mendoza's line. And for someone that hits the ball as hard as he does and barrels the ball as hard as he does, runs as well as he does, I would not bank on that average staying at below 200 for the rest of the season. Sure, there are a lot of flaws in his game, and I'm sure as he's still very, very young and only has 76 games of major league experience as a 23-year-old. The swing and miss is not great. There is a high swing strike rate that backs that up. But we've seen plenty of guys be successful fantasy players with a hot K rate above 30, and he sort of has that power speed combo and floor that would allow him to be successful even with the 27-28% strikeout rate that he has. Another guy that has an extremely low BABIP. His homer to fly ball is probably a little bit high, but again, he does barrel the ball really well. Has good bat speed. His chase rate isn't even that bad. It's basically league average. So, there's a lot of swing and miss. I also know that there's a lot more ground balls and less of not a lot of his balls are pulled in the air. So even with that high power percentage, they may not be maximized, right? But as players age and as they adjust, that's something that comes in their profile that may not come right away, right? He's still only 23 and only spent parts of 2 seasons in the minors, right? Basically some of 2023 and then all of 2024. So I even think he missed some time potentially because he only played 100 games last year in the minors. So, he got called up too.
Yeah,
Forgot
right.
about that. So I think that there is a really good profile long term for Dylan Cruz here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think some of this luster may be worn off if he doesn't, bring the average up and if there's, knock on wood, a setback or something with his oblique, that I think he could be a really, really good buy for next season. But I think that there's a good power speed guy here that you want even this year.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, we talked about it with Garcia that it seems like every summer the Washington offense kind of sneaks up on you with playing in that hot ballpark, and they're a lot better this year in terms of a lineup context with James Wood has been terrific, all that stuff. And it is just worth noting, maybe not reading in too much to it, but the 2 games before he was out injured, he went back-to-back homers. So I was just looking into that injury because obliques, it is a bummer. It feels like that's such a, I mean, what
it really
muscle
derails you.
Yeah. And the rehab is probably terrible. And it's like, what do you want to do if you're coming back from an oblique injury, but like swing a bat 75 miles per hour?
And like obliques, like plenty of people have talked about it, but when you have an oblique injury, you basically need to wait until it doesn't hurt, then try to do something. And if you swing a bat and it hurts, you have to just like wait again.
Right.
Like you can't it's
I
not
feel
like
you ruined Anthony
cast
Rendon.
or it's such a tough injury. Yeah. And especially for hitters that if you think about that movement, like of course they hurt their obliques and with how hard they swing the bat. Yeah.
Totally. But I mean, he was saying in some of his interviews that like he finally felt like he was in a groove at the plate, and he did have back-to-back homers before it happened. So I think you're right, Steve, that like if you just look, I mean, it's almost the Nolan Jones, Tyler O'Neill type of thing where you have to just hold your nose, but be like, man, look at the homer steals. those are kind of the sexiest metrics in fantasy baseball, and the fact that he was, like you said, kind of pacing toward a 2030 season, you know, you almost put that average aside because there's going to be peaks and valleys of that with a guy who hits the ball that hard and can run that fast. So I think he's still a really good boom bust pick. I think if you are on the outside looking in some of your leagues, like trying to catch lightning in a bottle at like around the All-Star break to make a push, I think Cruz is a guy that could, like, we would not be shocked if we got into the late episodes of the year in like August and September and we were like, remember we were talking about Dylan Cruz? He did end up going off. Like, he's the type of guy with a 60 raw power, 70 speed on his prospect grades that, like, he could go off. So
if he had 5 more hits fall, like prior to this injury, we're talking about him as like a NL Rookie of the Year candidate with the 7 homers and 11 stolen bases in that short amount of time.
Right. Yeah, it's a good point. It's a smaller amount of numbers, so that could swing. Speaking of guys that we look back on and talk about, shout out to you, Steve, because you were kind of all about the Mike Trout buy low when it was looking like it was fully selling out for pop. And we thought, man, is this really who Mike Trout is? Is he not? Surely he's not like a Mendoza batting average with all of this pop. And the average has been coming around. He's hitting 294 in June. And that strikeout rate in April that we're like, ooh, it is a 30% strikeout rate. I mean, we talked about all this on the show. That has come down to kind of a palatable 23%, with how much he smashes the ball. The chase rate has dropped from 25 to 18%. So I think Mike Trout, I think is going to be harder to pry away from a manager, but I think it's more like what you would be willing to give up, like on the buy low side. Like, he's just had 2 homers in the month of June, and his season line is still a 231 average. But where are we at here with Mike Trout, Steve? Because it's starting to look like if he can put together the average that he's had with the pop from the start of the season, everything looks about as like peak Mike Trout as you can get. So curious here, like, how we would grade Trout in the grand scheme of fantasy outfielders.
I am patiently waiting for the melding of those things to happen. It's been frustrating. I mean, the fact that he missed a month with a knee injury was frustrating, and the fact that he seemed like this all or nothing hitter for the first month prior to getting hurt was also frustrating. And now that the average seems to be there since he's come back, at least the resultant power hasn't been there. That being said, the process still is there and looks good. The hard hit, the average exit velocity, the barrel rate, all look really good, and would tell me that it's only a matter of time before we get a 10 homer month with maybe a 250 average or something like that, and we turn around and are reminded of how good Trout is. Seeing him not be super elite makes me sad. Maybe that's why I am a bit of a sucker for him, and I've just been such a fan of him, and it's been one of my favorite players, if not my favorite player over the last decade or so. So maybe I'm this is an emotional it was an emotional chalkboard pick, and I'm willing it to happen. But just looking at it, like, okay, like, it's a 278 XBA, it's a 581 X slug, like, so that's some of the best in the league. All the metrics are in line as far as the hard hit, the max EV. There's things to look at, and then the strikeout rate coming back down to something that's, he's had really successful years with a 27, 28% strikeout rate, that he's hit the ball so hard that he's gotten around that, right? He's full-time DHing since he's come back. I
good
love to
thing.
hear that. Right, that's a
Mhm.
good thing for Trout to be on the field. So, um, maybe it's just a matter of time, and when you come back from an injury, it takes a little bit to get that second of timing back, right? Um, but I'm still waiting. I still believe, and would absolutely buy if there's any opportunity to do so in any league.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a relatively small sample size since he's been back of like 16, 17 games. He's got the couple homers, but it is a little alarming that there's been like 2 doubles. So just going and looking at the month to month,
Dude,
what's
does he
in
have it? How many doubles does he have on the year? Not many, right? It's crazy.
no, honestly not. I think
He has two
geez,
doubles on the year,
he has
dude.
2 on the year. So he has yeah, he's had 1 since he's returned and then
Yeah,
the 2 homers, which is crazy. His ground ball rate is elevated quite a bit since he's coming back.
interesting.
So, like the fly ball rate dropped from when it was 43% in April down to like 29%, and all of that has gone toward like grounders. So I think you're probably right that it's
That's a timing thing.
a timing.
That's a
Yeah.
timing thing.
And
Like,
especially if it was a
yeah,
knee injury, it feels like that is something that, may be playing in, not to do like the confirmation bias thing, but it's not like Trout overnight has just become a ground ball hitter when he's been the exact opposite, right? For the past couple years.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
his if Trout is anything these days in like this latest chapter, it's been a guy who can lift the ball and barrel it and everything. So yeah, the ground ball rate I think should come down. And if it does, it's all systems go. But I guess that is still an if. It is sad though. Age 33. I mean, you would hope a
Yeah.
guy that's given so much to the game would be able to have that, like, go. Not David Ortiz, where he's like playing till he's 39, but you would think at least like 37, 38, he would still be like a solid uh, contributor and not just kind of a shell of like the Hall of Fame Mike Trout, I guess. But
Yeah.
uh,
So it's actually really interesting. So with Baseball Savant's new swing path and attack angle, you could break down like how Trout's swing has been by month. What's interesting and encouraging, his bat speed is highest in June than it's been at any point in the season. However, his attack angle, so like the angle at which the bat meets the ball at contact point. Um, so whether like you're getting under it or hitting it at the ground is at just 6 degrees. In May, when he was hitting a bunch of homers before he got hurt, it was at 14. His attack direction is actually like 0. So like that's whether it's pull, oppo, or up the middle, it's 0. Whereas in May it was 8%. And his ideal attack angle, which is like a 5 degree, in between 5 and 20 degrees, was at 61%, 61.5% in May, so really good. In June, since he's been back, at just 39%. So the intercept point also in terms of where he's hitting the ball, like if you want to get it out in front to pull it, it's 7.5 inches behind the plate. In May, it was 2.5 inches. So, I know there's that's not necessarily an end all be all, right? Like Judge lets the ball travel and is still able to hit home runs, and Trout has the bat speed and the bat to ball skills to let the ball travel and do that, or quality contact skills to do that. But it does just seem like, looking at these new metrics, which are really, really cool, something is slightly off with his timing. And maybe once he gets that and pairs that with the better average and lower strikeout rate, we could see a vintage Trout run here in the
mhm.
summer, which I would welcome that with open arms.
Yeah, yeah, that's super interesting. Yeah, and it looks like the bat speed is up as well in
Yeah.
June.
Hmm.
So I think it comes down to him just getting back into a groove and putting it all together. So I'm buying personally. I think it's like it's a at the start of the year, I put Mike Trout and DeGrom in that same category,
Okay.
right? It's like they are
Yeah.
just experts of what they do, and if they can stay healthy, and it's like, yeah, Trout had the injury, but he's already showed he can have a month of insane power, and he
Yeah.
showed he can have a month of excellent, like, contributing batting average. So put the two together. It's not like we're asking, kind of a quad A guy to do this. Like, this is Mike Trout we're talking about. So yeah, I'm buying. I think we're going to see a big summer from him. So that is Doyle, Cruz, and Trout. I think. Yeah. I mean, Doyle with the Rockies month, it's like you ride the hot hand. Cruz is more of that. Uh, if you need to go on a surge, I think it would take
If you have
maybe
an IL spot,
for sure, because
Cruz
that's a
is a
stash.
good
Yeah.
stash. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Trout, I think, is a great buy low target, even if he has another week or two where he's homerless and people are getting frustrated. So we'll get to our last three guys that we're going to talk about. We're going to take our second ad break, and we'll be right back after this. All right, so Steve, one that I wanted to hit on in possibly quick order is Gunnar Henderson, because I feel like Gunnar has been a streaky player in, the 2.5 years or so where we've had the luxury of watching him. He got off to kind of a cold start, but his season line is now looking good with like a 283 average. The 790 OPS is below what we would expect. And it is kind of interesting that it's similar to the Trout story that he's having a much better June, a 366 batting average, thanks to an 11 game hit streak that is still active and that has 5 multi-hit games in it. So the average has been there, but the power has not quite been there. And looking closer at Gunnar, his approach has looked a lot different in June, where he's actually chasing more, he's swinging more overall, and his swing and misses are down. So it's one of those that he's just like, his contact skills are good enough that he can chase and still hit it. And the line drive rate is way, way up. But unfortunately, at the expense of barrels and fly balls. So we also don't want Gunnar Henderson turning into like an Alec Boehm. But it is worth noting that he is running pretty hot right now. And he's a guy that has had like tales of two seasons in the past. I know there were, some years where he was like dropped in a lot of leagues and then he turned around and looked like a league winner. So it's not like pennies on the dollar when he's got a 283 average on the season, but I do think that for where people got him in the first round, he's one of the bigger back of the baseball card underperformers, if you will, in the first round. Do you think that this is still like a first round player despite this volatile kind of profile or archetype that he's showing? And what do we think? Because this is, again, another 23-year-old who has all the tools to be like, the top 8 pick that he was in drafts. So just curious your thoughts on Gunnar Henderson, if we think this is, a big buy low.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe it's not the top 5 pick that we thought he would be going into the season, but I still think it's a back end of the first round, start of the second floor, which you pay for. There are some things that are, not great, right? Like the lower barrel rate, the higher swinging strike rate, the higher chase rate overall. But I mean, he's also running a 13% homer to fly ball rate when his career is 20. His BABIP is actually pretty high. So, and the average isn't what you're complaining about at 277, right? It's the power. Not to sound like a broken record, but Camden Yards is another great place to hit in the summer. I would expect a lot more homers from now to this point. I would be surprised if Gunnar Henderson doesn't approach 30 homers or surpass it. Even with just the 7 that he has now, 8. Okay. So yeah, maybe it's not the 37, but the floor I think is the 28 that he hit in 2023, and 2023 was when he got off that super slow start. There were stretches and months last year where he looked like one of the best players in baseball. So yes, he can go on these runs, and I think will. Another thing that I think plays into it is the fact that he had that adductor strain. Basically, did not have a spring training, missed only like 4 or 5 games to start the year. But that sometimes plays into guys, and is a reason why guys have slow starts when they don't have that ability to get their timing right in spring training and feel good about themselves in the early season. So yes, overall, I'm buying Gunnar Henderson having a much better second half of the season here.
Yeah.
I would be surprised if he doesn't have an OPS that starts like 8.7 or something like that by the end of the 870 by the end of the season.
Yeah, the 529 slug last year, and it's been a 442 so far. But that's a really good point on the injury, Steve. Because yeah, April was even though he had some homers, the
Yeah,
228 batting average, like that's if you remove that, right, then he's looked shy on power, but like a really good hitter, which is a good baseline before it could like heat up. The only thing is last year he did start out red hot, right? So
and did
did
have
he still
I
hit
think he
for
did.
some power in the summer? Yeah, I mean he had 8 homers in June last year.
Yeah,
I think might have been 2023 where he was. Yeah, that was the year where April and May he was like a 200 hitter,
yeah,
and
he was
then
like a drop. Yeah, yeah,
rest of the
for
season, it
yeah.
was like month after month he was like an
Mm-hmm.
850 type of OPS guy with 5, 6 homers a month. So yeah, I think we've seen enough for 2.5 years that Gunnar is an out and out like 25 plus homer guy, and he's only got 8 so far. So yeah, it's I think it's a good buy low, and I think yeah, if you could get Gunnar for a guy that's kind of like a pop-up stud this season that you kind of rate out as like a 4th round, 5th round guy, like I think you said it, Steve, that he might be more like a 3rd round type of value rest of the way.
I would take the over on that. I think Gunner's still a first, second round player. Maybe I'm
You think?
biased, but
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just a little.
Maybe
I think
you
it'll be
have
a
for a cheaper
watermark
price
on
then
homers.
if that's what you feel. All right, let's look at the. We did this last week, but let's look at the player rater, and we'll do some would you rather's for shortstops.
Yeah, I like it.
Okay, so shortstops. This is 12 team 5x5. Gunnar Henderson is the 15th ranked shortstop at $8.7 of value. Okay. Javi Baez is the player right below him, above him. It's obvious.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Gunnar Henderson or Bo Bichette rest of the season.
Gunner,
Gunnar Henderson or Mookie Betts rest of the season.
Mookie,
Okay. Gunnar Henderson or CJ Abrams.
Gunner,
Okay. Gunnar Henderson or Jacob Wilson, who has $22 of value so far.
oh yeah. Yeah, that's Gunner.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
Gunnar
Wilson is
Henderson or
Wilson's
Jeremy
bad.
Pena,
Oh
who
yeah,
has
that's a good one.
$24 of value.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, he's been kind of a machine in his own right. I would still go with Gunner though.
Agree. Gunnar Henderson or Trey Turner.
Trey.
Okay. All right. So
How about you? You've always liked Trey. He's had a good season. He's running a lot.
he has
That's a good one. That's a good
the
one right
19
there.
steals and 9 homers. I would still take Gunner. I think he's an overall. I think that the bat is just going to end up, surpassing surpassing Trey's. Like Trey is running really hot right now. Looks really good, and has the an 831 OPS and 9 homers. But I think his homer ceiling is that low 20s, and I think that Gunner can kind of hit 20 in 2 months, sort of thing. So
Yeah.
I would go Gunner.
No, that's not a bad call.
I think I would
I
go
have
Gunner
lost
over
Trey. I have Trey in my
Mookie.
own league, so I'm
Yeah.
thinking twice about that. You'd go Gunner over Mookie. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the same sort of concerns sort of apply for me for Mookie. He's been equally as disappointing. I think could have been on this list,
Yeah.
for sure. He's just a 751 OPS, a 113 WRC plus, 9 homers, 6 steals. Had that, the sickness in the off season, right, and lost all that weight and really hasn't looked himself. And a lot of the Stackhouse and underlying metrics don't look great for Mookie. Whereas, at least Gunner's still hitting the ball really hard. He's not hitting it how he wants to hit it, but that tells me the same sort of thing of like Trout. Okay, he's just a slight adjustment off with getting his timing right, and then those hard hits will turn into barrels and subsequently into home runs.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a good point. I mean, those three are close. Turner, Gunnar, and Mookie. I think we got to watch that race the rest of the way. But I think I would go. You're starting to convince me on the Mookie one. I think it's still hard. Maybe I'm like a prisoner of the moment, but it's been Turner's just. It feels like game in, game
Yeah,
out, and
it's
like
probably fair. It's probably
multi-homer.
fair to choose Turner right now. Yeah, yeah. He's been
Um,
sort of vintage peak first rounder, Trey Turner. Yeah, that's fair.
yeah, with the runs and everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a good one. I would do Pena to or Gunnar over
Yeah.
Pena, and
Yeah.
that's you could probably get that done. So okay, great. So that's Gunnar. Julio Rodriguez was the next one, and this was more of a question than anything, Steve, of like, we've been trying to kind of value Julio over the past 2 years. One of the more volatile players in baseball and like streaky when he goes on these surges. Right now, he's at a 255 average, 10 homers, 12 steals. Man, there's a trend here. I don't wonder if they changed the ball or something. June hitting 300, but 0 homers. So he's about the
Yeah. What's going on? How come all these guys are
Gunnar,
hitting?
Trout. Like we've talked about a lot of guys who are like a lot of average, not a lot of power. It's bizarre. But every single year, Julio has had a big second half compared to his first. So if we're just playing the like, dumb luck of the second half, it's like the Luis Castillo thing, but Julio's just like a perpetual slow starter. And it honestly, it hasn't been terrible, right? Like he's on pace for like almost a 25-25 season, but is there more here to where you would have to pay up big to get Julio? Um, Curious what we think here. Like, is this one where we're buying that he's still in that top 2-3 round type of value output?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that yes, it's still like definitely top 3 round, but I don't know if like we'll get back to the 30-30. This might be the best player in baseball sort of thing.
Sure. Yeah.
As a 22-year-old. Um, that being said, I think there's still a lot to like here. The second half splits, I think, are definitely a thing with him. It's been that way for basically since he's come into the league. I think there's definitely more power, and the barrel rate will regress to the closer to the 11-12% for his career. The hard hit rate is down, which is again a little bit concerning, but nothing too far off of where he's been. I mean, it's not the 52% when he had that amazing season, but still, above average. And with that, the strikeout rate's gone down. Like it's sort of a thing. Like, do you trust Julio to pair this lower strikeout rate with, potentially being the upper 20s, low 30s homer hitter that he showed in 22-23? I mean, I would trade for this profile for those two profiles, but as he's maturing as a hitter, I think that there will be some growth there overall to sort of pair those two skills. He has 12 steals. That's nice. The 10 homers is already a better pace than he had last year, right? With just a 20. So if that second half surge comes, you're going to be in a much better spot than you were last year, just because it was so much worse to start the season last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't think that he's this 116, 114 WRC plus player that he's been the last 2 years. I want to believe that he's more of in the 130 range that he showed in his first 2 seasons, and I think that'll come. Maybe it's blinded by the name value, and there are some red flags here in the fact that the chase rate is still bad, the barrel rate and hard hit are down,
Mm-hmm.
and the swing strike rate is up. But I think those things will all slightly regress, and sort of the soft analysis of Julio Rodriguez has much better second halves than he does in the first. So we'll see. Maybe I'm not as confident as like Gunnar or even Trout, honestly. Like maybe Julio is who he is, but I still think it's a good buy low. And people could. It's a longer track record, right? This is what they believe that he is. Maybe they're right, but I still think there's too much talent there to not believe in someone like Julio Rodriguez.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he needs some mechanic stuff. Like it looks like some of his like swing path attack angle numbers have just like gone off the cliff
Yeah,
month over month. I mean, if you're squinting, what's good is that his 53% ground ball rate in April has come down to like 45%. Like you like seeing him,
mm-hmm.
reduce ground balls by 8%. His line drive and fly ball have gone up a little bit since April. So those things are encouraging. But yeah, it seems like just abnormal for a guy with like that sweet of a
Like, how does
swing.
a
Like
guy
when you
with
think
that
of the
much
home
bat
run
speed?
derby and everything,
Yeah,
like it's just like, is he really like a 7.5% barrel rate guy? Like, no way at age
yeah,
24. So it's almost like he could benefit from, I don't know, like not a phantom IL stint, but like he's too good of we've seen him be too good of a hitter to just like accept that this is the type of bat he is at age 24, right?
yeah. Even last year, right? Like you would buy the underlying barrel and hard hit and be like, yeah, he deserves much better than this, right? Like it was a 275 XBA last year, 463 X slug. This year it's down to 271, which is fine, 458. But like you don't want you're not hoping that he has a 458 slug. You want it to be closer to the 485, 500 that he showed he could
Mm-hmm.
approach in 23 and 22, right? So I don't know. The more I looked into this and talked about this, the less confident I'm in it. Like, right, you bought the track record and the underlying process for the last 2 years. Now you're buying a track record that's 3 years ago, and the barrel hard hit is not there, paired with the fact that he's always been a guy with a lot of swing and miss and a lot of chase in his game, even if that doesn't manifest in a super, super high strikeout rate.
Yeah. Yep. It looks like it looks like it's breaking balls. Like if you go back to 2023 when he was great, he had a 13 homers against breaking balls, and that was like a 487 slug. This year, he has a 210 batting average with a 330 slug. So 487 down to a 330 slug. Like it's still, he's doing some damage on the fastballs this year. Like you would take what he's doing on fastballs. It's not that different than his like peak. It's just it looks like for the life of him, it can't
Yeah.
hit breaking balls and square
167,
it up.
229 slug versus sliders this year. It's
Ugh.
not good in a league that throws a ton of sliders.
Yeah, they're kind of picking on him there. So, well, it's something clear for him to work on, and there's a lot smarter people than us working with him. So I think you're just holding out hope for that. But and the fact that he's so young, it's like we see guys go through development, right? Even if we ordain them a top 5 pick in fantasy, like it's a it's a process. So yeah, overall, I think it's still, if this has been bad Julio and it's 250, 10 homers, 12 steals, like it's not bad for fantasy. But yeah, that's Julio. Enough said. Another guy who's kind of flirted with that section of the draft, Vlad Guerrero. And Steve, this is maybe your home, you're on your Mount Rushmore of WAF characters over the years. So I'll let you kind of talk through why you threw Vlad on the list here.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing this again, right?
Again.
It seems like the same exact thing as last year. And I know that with those new metrics that came out on Baseball Savant, like everyone was, a swing doctor on Twitter and diagnosing what was wrong with Vlad. And yes, there are some concerning things. He has a very flat swing. He has, does not have the greatest angles as far as where he's hitting the ball, and that would lead to the most damage and pulled fly balls. But I don't know. At this point, like, I'm not going to be one that is going to tell Vlad to change something in his swing when he has a career WRC plus of 137, and has been as good as 66% better than the league in 2 of the last 4 seasons, and has been quote unquote slumping to start the year and is still 33% better than average. We saw this last year, right? There was a slow start with power, even with average too. It's eerily similar to the exact timeline that, like, I want to say at this point last year, Vlad was batting close to 280 with 9-ish homers, and then finished the season 323 with 30 homers, right? I think that's who Vlad is. And yes, there are going to be stretches where that swing path does hurt him and he's not tapping into his power despite all these amazing hard hit rates, right? Like, he has a 332 XBA. He's the best in the league as far as XBA. It's like him and Judge. A 536 XLOP. Yes, like, we know, like, these numbers are all going to be good because Vlad hits the ball super, super hard. But I mean, launch angle isn't that, like, and he is starting to hit the ball in the air more. He has a few extra base hits over the last week. Like, I think this is the time, and the buy low window on Vlad is going to slam shut very, very soon, just like it did last year. If you have any thoughts, I'll look into that, where he was at this point last year. I'm just super, super curious to where he is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the month over month grounders going up isn't great, but like, I'm with you, Steve. We've been here like many, many times, and it's just like we have to learn our lesson that Vlad adjusts to the adjustments. He hits the ball extremely hard. He's hitting it even harder in June. Let's see on barrel per batted ball. Yeah, I mean, it's still
on June 18th last year, he was hitting 280 with 7 homers.
No way. It's the exact same thing.
Yes, it's the exact 2 less homers, 1 point of batting average less.
Wow. Yeah.
And then from June 18th on to the rest of the season, he hit
23 homers and probably hit 360.
23 homers with 355 batting average.
Yeah, no, that would be worth a buy low.
That would play.
All he has to do is do what he's proven he can year over year. So, yeah, I will go against the Twitter swing doctors on this one. Yeah, I love it, Steve. So yeah, that last section, that was a fun section. We don't get to talk about these guys mid-season very often. So Gunnar, Julio, Vlad, I think the easy. Well, I guess between Gunnar and Vlad, where would you go on priority of buy low? Because I think Julio is third out of that group.
I mean, the shortstop position, I don't know. I think I would lean Vlad. I'd believe more in Vlad.
Yeah,
I would trade. Would you trade Gunnar straight up for Vlad? I would.
Yeah, I would. I think Vlad is like a 10 out of 10 on the buy low chart for me. Yeah. Gunnar, yeah. I mean, I still believe in Gunnar. It's just
there's speed too with Gunnar too, right? We didn't mention that he's got 9 steals too, which is nice.
Yeah, but they're right up there. And then Julio, I think there are questions about just like where his level will land. You know what I mean? Like, there's some big volatility with him that I don't think, because even when he was great, he was super streaky. You know what I mean? Which I don't love. So yeah, I think those ones are good.
What about that middle question from Slayer? In the chat.
Oh, Zach Neto for Julio. Oh, interesting. So let's look at Neto. 10 homers, 12 steals in just 55 games.
You're hoping that Julio gives you a stretch like that, right?
Right. That's what you're hoping for. And I think, man, the underlying stuff looks really good. This is a fun one. So Neto is really like exploding on these.
And he did last year too. 23 homers, 30 steals.
Yeah, but this year, the numbers beneath it are super impressive.
Yeah. 14% barrel rate, 47% hard hit.
Interesting. So, I mean, God, man, that's tough. I wanted to say straight away, like, yeah, I think you do have to do it for Julio. Different positions. Are you leaning a certain way here, Steve? That's a great question in the chat here. I think I would still do it.
I think I'd rather have Neto.
You would? Okay.
Yeah. And I don't think that's as much of a knock on Julio. I think Zach Neto's like a top 4 round
Breaking out. Yeah.
I mean, he's done this 2 years in a row now.
But is Julio not a top 4?
He's close.
Uh-huh.
But I think I'd rather Neto's been doing it for the last 2 years. Where you're waiting to see it happen with Julio again, right?
Not only are you waiting to see it happen, but you're waiting for the reasons to believe it will happen.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
If Julio's story was as convincing as some of the other ones we've talked about, like Trout or even Gunnar and Vlad and all that stuff, then I'd be like, oh yeah, like buy it. But and it would be a different story if Neto didn't look as convincing on everything that he's doing. So yeah, that's a crazy thing to say out loud, but I think Neto would be the keep there of the two. Just you're trading for someone to turn into what you're hoping they'll become what Neto is right now. So I think that's fair. Love it. Thanks for the question. Thanks for everybody tuning in. It's great being here. We'll be doing the live ones throughout the rest of the season on the YouTube channel, and then still weekly every Thursday. So next week, if you guys like the show, I think we'll probably do something similar for pitchers, unless there's kind of a surging topic with a bunch of call-ups or something. So until then, that wraps us up for episode 182. Thanks for talking baseball.
Guys. Thanks for listening, guys. Later.